They finally did it. They broke the game, shattered the balance and doomed any reason or logic. I swear, DE is just a bunch of Revenant mains. It's just, how could you do this? Like actually, do you not understand what you have done? I can't even right now. Whatever, you clicked the thumbnail and you read the title. We are taking a look at the 5 new Arcanes and 4 augment mods added with Crtirne's last wish. And without further ado, Arcane Steadfast. So let's get the obvious stuff out of the way. It's not nearly as good as Arcane Energize in most cases. If you for some reason use more than 300 energy every 15 seconds, then yeah, I guess this is it. But Arcane Energize is more than 2000 platinum on Warframe.market, so most players are just not going to get it. Ever. On the other hand, Arcane Steadfast can be farmed in 12.5 hours or 8 hours on the Steel Path, and it becomes available on Mars. So, assuming that you are not in the ballpark of getting Arcane Energize, this is like 8 out of 10. If you already have Arcane Energize, then it's more like a 1 out of 10. Primary plated rounds. Gauss is really gonna like this one. But first, what is increased damage? It's magazine size to the 0.5 power times 0.3. Right. So you need at least 116 maximum magazine size for this to be better than primary merciless. If you were to run this on comb with the burdened magazine, that would be a 318 magazine, which would result in a 588 damage boost, so it does have a place in this game, but at the same time it is going to be pretty niche. Again, Gauss is going to like this, but is it worth 8 hours in Tiana's Pass? For me, that's a no. But I'll gracefully give it a 5 out of 10, just a fine addition to the game. Arcane Double Back. This looked like it had just tons of potential, but it's not do a roll or a double jump or a bullet jump, it's and. It's 3 separate buffs of 25%. Now to be fair, you can do all 3 in rapid succession, but you have to do it every 4 seconds, and now it starts to feel like shield gating with only a fraction of the benefit. The main scenario where I could see this be useful is on Garuda, who kind of has an open arcane slot. After comboing a room, she could easily refresh the buff while moving to the next group of enemies anyways. With Crtirne on her team, that would mean that a hit that would have killed her will now only deal 2.5% of her effective health, which is no small deal. Realistically though, this is never going to come up in play in a real game. If they buffed it to 8 seconds, then we could talk. But as it is, I wanted to like this arcane. 75% damage reduction on an arcane sounds amazing, but the more I think about it, the worse it gets. So 3 out of 10 before I have more time to think about it. Secondary Kinship. I tried pushing this to its absolute limit and, well, let's take Octavia, which is better at solo play but whatever, as an example. She has 4 buffs on her Manticore, 1 on her ulti and 1 from, Norris. That's 6 buffs on 3T. Actually, the buffs you apply to yourself count, but not the ones on your companions? What? Okay, whatever. 6 buffs on 4 allies is 24, which is 480 critical chance. That's debatable. I don't want to give up my 480 base damage on Cascadia Flare for this. Besides, realistically you're never going to have more than 12 buffs at one time, so 240 critical chance? Not a chance. 1 out of 10 would never use. And then we have the big guns. Secondary Encumber. I struggle to get across just how insane this arcane is. I mean, it's an 11 out of 10 first up, but look at these. What do they all have in common? That's right, they all increase damage, but we don't care about how much damage a weapon meant exclusively for spreading status effects deal. Arguably, Conjunction Voltage also kind of works on primers. More bullets means more status, but that's confined to you using an electric build, which are, well... But this arcane straight up applies status effects on the target. So Merciless requires you to kill to trigger it, while Conjunction Voltage requires you to deal electric procs. What's the requirement of Secondary Encumber? Deal status effects. You heard that right. When you apply status effects, you apply status effects, and not necessarily the kind already available on the primer. There is no competition for this arcane slot. If you have a primer, you want to use this on it. Broken ass arcane. And that concludes the section of the video dedicated to arcanes. Now let's move on to augment mods. So first up we have the mod I was the most excited for, which is Shatter Storm. And oh boy, is it terrible. 100% of what? Last time I checked, 100% of 1148 is not 20. The Splinter Storm on the enemies does not scale with Splinter Storm's damage. It's a fixed amount of damage, just a really horrible damage over time. The enemies that would have succumbed to this is dead 78 times over from the initial hit. I think what happened is that they announced this, and then when prime time ended, the one guy from the balance department kicked in the door to the studio and was like, "What are you doing?" And so they shadow nerfed it before they released it, but gave us the Gaia change instead, which allows her to build her damage from inside her mass Vitrify, which is just extremely nice, so I don't even mind. Again, this ability has infinite damage scaling and is only kept in check by the fact that it has a tiny radius of about 5 meters. If you increase that to 60 meters or something like that, that would probably be a little bit broken. But hey, as it stands, the augment is major doo-doo, and it's actually -1 out of 10. It should never have existed. Merulina Guardian. You probably expect me to shit on this augment, but apparently, and I couldn't find out when for the life of me, but they buffed Merulina massively. It's now 90% damage reduction instead of 75, which, you know, 75%, 90%, whatever, right? No, wrong. In practice, this means that you take 60% less damage while up on Merulina, which means that she's now as tanky as Nessia or Gara. And yes, it's still a massive downgrade being up on this jelly pancake, but 200% fire rate, 200% reload speed, 200% critical chance, 4 seconds refreshable invulnerability, grouping, damage vulnerability, it starts adding up. I'd say that Yareli moves up several tiers from this. It's absolutely mandatory. So, for the augment itself, it's like 7 out of 10. It would be higher if it was not specifically on Yareli. Well, since I dedicated a video to hating on Yareli, I guess I should say that I do think that she's in an alright place now, though it might be a bit boring. Good old 90% damage reduction and a weapon buff. And oh yeah, speaking of the bottom of the tier list, Cathode Current. So after some introspection, I think I was too hard on Lavos, who maybe didn't quite deserve to be in trash tier. On the other hand, Gaia, I don't know what got into me or what I was thinking, but she would have gone straight into trash tier. I thought her damage was okay on release, like good enough to have fun with, though several frames had more damage. I thought she just needed some better defenses. Instead, they declared her ultimate a glitch and reduced its damage by like 97%. So, like, yeah. But now we have Cathode Current, and to be honest, the damage is just not enough against armored targets, and with nullifiers on the corpus side, well, she really needs to crowd control everything at once. So the problem with electric procs is that you cannot shock an enemy that's already being shocked. So like, I guess 3 out of 10, right? It's good against corpus, but you could use anything against corpus and it would be good. Mesmer Shield. What the fuck? In case you somehow don't know, Mesmer skin gives Revenant charges, which are expended instead of him taking damage, with a guaranteed 1 second before another charge can be consumed. If that sounds hilariously game-breaking to you, well, yeah. But it was contained on Revenant, who was a bit slow and clunky, so it was okay for him to be literally unkillable. This ability was not supposed to be shareable. You know, you just slap Mending Unity, Dispensary, Equilibrium, and then you hit 2. Use the flare to increase the affinity range to 200 if it wasn't broken enough already, and then your team cannot die. Period. Full stop. Like, actually. It's basically like slapping 5 shield gates on top of their shields. The only thing you have to worry about is Revenant being vulnerable while casting Mesmer skin, but we have a fix for that as well. Just run 3 yellow shards or natural talent, brief respite plus 4 augments mods, and now you cannot die either while casting. And at this point, you might ask, why would you ever play anything else? I don't know. Revenant is now so many leagues ahead of all other supports that there really isn't any reason to play them. Fucking 99 out of 100, just because it doesn't do anything in solo play, and also like 0 out of a million for the game's health.